Yo, welcome to the channel. Today we're talking state management, and specifically a framework called Zustand. If you've ever struggled with Redux boilerplate code or using context providers and they get kind of out of hand, today's video is for you. I'm going to show you a super lightweight library called Zustand that keeps your code clean, keeps your re-renders minimal, and most of all, keeps your sanity in check. So today, let's dive in and see why you may never look back once you try Zustand. All right, so we're going to start out with a really simple example. On the right-hand side, you'll see a preview. This is a counter. It's at 0. We're going to have an add 1 and subtract 1 button. Right now, you'll see that it's all static. There's no actions on the buttons, and the count itself is not dynamic. So using Zustand, how do we actually create a store, and how do we make this more dynamic? So let's start by importing the create function from Zustand. What we're going to do here is first, I'm going to create a type that's going to describe what this store looks like. And in our case, we're going to have a count on the store. This is the state of the store. The store is also going to have actions. And in our case, I'm going to have an add 1 method and a subtract 1 method on the store. So let's actually create this store. We're going to create hooks using the create method from Zustand. And the way we're going to do this is we call that create method we imported. And then we define both our state and our actions. So what's this actually doing? It's creating a store that we can reuse in as many places as we want. And it's got the state on it with an initial state of 0 and 2 methods on it that are using the set method. Set gives us the state and it allows us to send back an object that's going to augment that state. So in this case, add 1 is going to add 1 to the count and subtract 1 is going to subtract 1 from the count. Now that we've created this store, what we can do is we can use it in our components. So here's an example. I'll say count equals use store, and then I provide it with a method that's going to say exactly what I want to pull out of the store. This is useful because if I've got lots of things stored, I don't have to refresh this value if they don't change. I only refresh this value if the value I want has changed. So let's plug this in. The value over here is still going to be 0 because that's what we initialized it to. If I was to change this so that our count started at 10, it would update. So then in the same way, I can also pull out the add 1 and the subtract 1 methods out of this store. And I can easily throw these onto the add 1 button, subtract 1 button. And now we've got this fully functional counter. Now this is a really trivial example, and everything we've just done could easily be accomplished using useState. But once we cross over into using Zustand across multiple components that may or may not have shared ancestry, that's where we'll see the real power. So let's take a look at a bit more of a complex example. Let's say that we have a shopping cart and we've got items and we're going to create this cart store, which is just an array of those items and the ability to add an item. So just like we showed before, you would create this store and then we can start using it. Now, we're going to show it being used in multiple different components without passing context, without passing props. And this is where Zustand really shines. Again, this is a simple example, but when you look at this in terms of a bigger application and across multiple components, that's where you'll see the ability to create these stores and share state in a simple and easy way. So let's talk about this header component. This header component is just going to list out how many items there are. So what I can do is I can just say, I want the item count. And using the cart store, I can just return the length of the items. Again, this will only update when that length changes. So even if the price or the quantity or things like that is changing, this is actually not going to update until the amount of items changes. So we can just put that in, boom, this is now dynamic. There's obviously no items in the cart, so it's not doing anything. But then let's say we have a different component, a component in the hierarchy tree here where we want to be able to actually add an item. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have the add item method here. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull the add item method out of that cart store. So now what I can do is I can say on click, what I want you to do is I want you to add an item. And it's going to have an ID of ABC, name of book, and a price of 10. Awesome. So now as I add that into the cart, our cart items are increasing. These are in separate components. They could be in separate files, but we're sharing state across here. One of the nice things too is I can actually use other hooks to tie into the store if I wanted a computed value, like the price or the total cost. So what I can do here is I can create my own hook called use total price. And this is actually going to pull all the items from the cart store. It's going to go over them and it's going to add the price. So I can come back in here and I'm going to say total price is, and it's going to use that hook. So now I've got this many items and the total is $0 because everything's refreshed. But now I'm going to add items. It's now $10, 20. Let's say this was $4.99. As I add items into this cart, it's going to keep adding. This gives us great separation while maintaining simple re-renders. While we're in here, I want to show you a couple more interesting pieces about Zustand. The first one is that I can actually import a middleware called DevTools. And if I were to wrap my creation of this, what it's going to give me, it's going to actually tie this store into Redux DevTools. So if you're already using Redux DevTools, or if you want to use DevTools with Zustand, this will actually just tie right in and you'll be able to see the changes. Let's take a look at another nice utility. Let's say that I actually want to be able to go to my API, get some information for the store. It's just as simple as being able to say, I'm going to create a fetch items method and it's going to be asynchronous. So in here, now I can just say fetch items. I can have a response here coming from a fetch. And what we're going to do is then we're going to set the state to be those things. One last utility that's really handy is the ability to persist a store to our local storage. And so we have this middleware from Zustand called Persist. And similar to the DevTools, if we were to call Persist on our store, and then what we can do in here is we'll pass in a name, cart storage. You can call this whatever you want. But effectively what this is going to do is it's going to persist this to our local storage. So when our items changes, it's actually being saved. So now that I've added persist, if I were to add items to this cart and then refresh, it's actually going to pull those items right back in from the local storage. This is great for things like settings, themes, light mode, dark mode. You're able to actually then have it persist just in local storage and not have to go to an API or go to your backend. I hope that was interesting and it helped you figure out if that was the right tool for you. If you're interested in more videos like this, hit that like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on JSX Jam.